It's in between all the other people there.
Well, he gives up.
This was fully charged. It died really fast. It's like crap now.
You can video too. You want to video?
Well, howdy folks, my name is Pete, and I'm here to tell you a story. No, shucks, it's not about me. This here's a story about one of the most famous miners to ever work here at Pine Grove Furnace. His name was Finley McGrew, and I'll tell you more about him in just a minute. What I'm going to tell you happened almost 100 years ago. And before you ask, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. Well, anyway, way back around 1895, things weren't going so well here at Pine Grove. You see, other companies were making iron faster and cheaper than we could make it here. Times were tough, but our miners kept plugging away. And for a while, things looked like they were going to work out. Then it happened. One day the ore pit, now Fuller Lake, was being worked on by a gang of miners when suddenly there was a loud noise. Well, the men knew right away what had happened. The main pump that was keeping the spring water started filling the hole. It had all up and broke. Water came roaring in. The men quickly started gathering up their equipment. As the water got higher and higher, the men had to wade into it to pull out machines and tools and supplies. Oh, what a sight it was. There were actually big old ore carts that were floating in the water. The ore hole supervisor's tent and all of his mine records were saved just in time. But the water rose higher and higher. What's that you say? Finley McGrew? Why no, I ain't forgot about him. As a matter of fact, McGrew was standing there on the edge of the pit watching it flood. Now I gotta tell you, this man McGrew, he was a little strange. It wasn't that he was off in the head or nothing like that, and he was real friendly, a likable sort of fella. Well, the thing that was different about McGrew was his hair. McGrew had a hairy head and a full bushy beard, but his hair didn't stop there. Why, his feet was hairy, and so was his chest and his back, his arms and his legs. But the thing you took notice of when you saw him was his hands. They was covered in so much hair you could hardly see skin. And the boys that worked with McGrew, well, they was always teasing him. Hey McGrew, don't you think it's a little warm for wearing gloves? Well, like I said, McGrew was standing there watching the water when all of a sudden he saw his lunch pail floating out there. Oh no, that's Mary's pumpkin pie. Mary was McGrew's wife, and pumpkin pie was his special favorite dessert. McGrew started into thinking about that scrumptious pie, and then he started thinking about his lunch pail and how he was going to have to spend some of his hard-earned money to buy a new one. Well, 50 cents was a lot of money in those days. There was only one thing to do. Down the lifting plane he went, heading towards that rising, swirling water. McGrew reached and he reached, but try as he might, he just couldn't grab that lunch pail. No, McGrew, leave it there. You can get another one. Hey, McGrew, I got an extra pail for you. All that hair on your body's going to make you sink. Oh, don't worry, fellas, apes can swim. And with that last remark, McGrew leaped into the water. He reached for the lunch pail and he grabbed it. A great cheer went up from the workers at the top of the pit. They shouted encouragement to McGrew. You have to share that pumpkin pie with us, McGrew. Then, just as everyone thought Finley McGrew was going to be successful, his pants leg caught in something under the water. McGrew started shouting for help. Help! Help! Men ran down the lifting plane to give him a hand. They had a long pole, but it wasn't long enough. Those waters, they kept rising. They rose up to McGrew's neck, then over his mouth, and then over his nose. Finally, over McGrew's face. In a matter of seconds, McGrew was completely swallowed up by that rising, swirling water. Some of the men dived in the water to try to save him, but their efforts, they were in vain. They returned to the lifting plane and sat and waited, hoping that McGrew would somehow free himself and rise to the surface. Well, the seconds dragged on to minutes, and there was no sign of McGrew. And the waters continued to rise in the ore pit, and now fill it to a depth of almost 90 feet. Neither McGrew nor his lunch pail was ever found. And that's how it was, that one day in October, 1895, so many years ago. But every year since that disaster, the hairy hand rises to the surface of the lake, formed by the flooding of the ore pit. And that hairy hand seems to be searching for something. Well, maybe it's that lunch pail, or maybe it's a piece of that delicious pumpkin pie it contained so many years ago. The hairy hand is only seen during the fall harvest season, and it disappears during the rest of the year. But it disappears only after an offering of pumpkins is made into the deep waters of this here lake. As long as there's a supply of pumpkins offered at Halloween, the hairy hand seems to be satisfied and doesn't venture onto the beautiful sands of Fuller Lake Beach. So let's hear everybody in the crowd chant 3 times. Hairy hand, go away.
Well, that's not big for you.